issue is this balloon payment that I'm getting to, and I'm going to get to it right away. I'm going to try to get to the point, and I'm going to try to tell you the point. Not being, whatever, rambling on. So the point here is, if you want to model a balloon payment, something I didn't really do in my structuring class or the structuring set of videos, I suggest splitting it into two facilities. And then when you split something into two facilities and you want one facility, debt facility, to capture the rest, you can say, well, the DSCR is the cash flow divided by the debt service on the regular facility plus the balloon facility. And then the debt service on the regular capturing facility, I'll call it, plus the balloon payment is equal to that. So the debt service on this capturing, I'll put debt service capturing. I don't know. I made a name up just now. And then the other formula we really need is that, if we're going to have a 15% balloon payment, and we know that the present value of the debt service from, I'll call this the sculpting facility, I'll changing my names in midstream here. The present value of that debt service I'm going to call the sculpt, and if we want the percent, if let's say it's a 15% balloon payment, but we want the percentage of the balloon payment, then we're going to have to take the 15% divided by 1 minus the 85%, blah, blah, blah. Now the issue with the balloon payment, we're going to split it into two facilities. So I'm going to have one debt facility that's a balloon payment, another debt facility that's our standard sculpted facility. That's what I just showed you. And then we can figure out how big the balloon payment is from this little formula I just showed you. And then here's what often happens. There's a little bit of a cash sweep account, which we can either model or not model. And when we don't model it, I'm going to show it as kind of a refinanced facility that I model almost exactly the same way. I'm going to put model like default if no sweep, because we're not going to have probably enough money in the very last year. We could either build up the money in a cash sweep or allow the refinancing, and that's what I want to show you. And finally, I want to show you the analysis and importance of the CCR. I'm going to call this the carrying charge rate. Now, what I haven't made videos in a little while. My friend Heidi said, "Oh no, you haven't made a video. Are you dead?" No, well, maybe people are hoping, but I'm working on batteries, and I'm working on merchant power. I'm so excited. Batteries, a big deal is the carrying charge rate, and we're gonna take this whole analysis that I'm going to, and show a carrying charge rate. So on this sheet, we've got a couple of things to fix, but this is our little interest on the balloon payment, and this NPV of the sculpted debt service is just the remainder. That's not a big issue. The hard issue up here is that we're going to have a circular reference. Oh no! And I'm going to show you how easy it is to model this with a function. Okay, so a balloon payment is a little tricky one. And right now, I suppose if I change the balloon payment, no, oh no, I put the ROE somewhere else. I did. Just a minute. Oh, hang on. Let's put the computed ROE. Do I have that? I don't think I have that. I'm going to take this from the result row here. That's why I kind of didn't do it. So if we change the balloon payment, this is where we're going to go, then I get a higher ROE. I only go up to 14%? Why does it limit to 14%? Okay, and then if I go down, I'm getting a lower ROE. I can't believe I didn't allow it to go to 15%. That's kind of silly. Yeah, I did. So, that's our 10% ROE. Why don't I do this? Let's be really aggressive and silly. Let's put a 25% balloon payment in. Okay, so if I go all the way up to 25%, then why is it stopping at 24? There must be, just a little slow. Okay, so I know that's an enormous balloon payment, but maybe in some kind of real estate transactions you have it. And we're swinging by more than, 1%, 100 basis point. Let's make the IRR a little bigger. Let's make the IRR, I'm putting a higher project IRR in. Let's switch this to our aggressive case. Oh no, we got too much. I'm going to put a lower development fee in here. Let's put a 50 and 100, okay? And I still have too much, so why don't we go to the base case? And on the base case, oh no, we have a 44% ROE. If I have no balloon payment, it goes to 38, and I maybe, let's put the ROE, the project IRR a little bit lower. How's that? Okay, this is kind of an absurd ROE. But when we have the higher, I just want to show you, and this is exactly what the whole, oh shoot, this is the idea. We put a higher balloon payment in, and this time I'm getting up to 36% with some crazy balloon payment, and then with no balloon payment at all, I go down to 20%. So it all depends. That's a cool answer. It all depends. Am I just waiting for this? Yes. Maybe now I can make my aggressive case. Let's put a yet lower ROE here. Let's take our aggressive case. Okay, with aggressive financing. So we only have here. Let's put our project IRR down to something like, how about, I'm going down to 5%. So no balloon payment. Then we put a higher balloon payment. And then we get an infinite ROE because it affects it so much. So I think hopefully you see the point. And the point is there are a whole lot of interactions going on. I can't even, my brain can't really absorb all the interrelations and complexities and everything else. All I'm going to do is really show you now how to model a balloon payment. So let's put it back to the base case, a much more moderate IRR, and let's put the balloon payment up to 15%. And I think, oh shoot, well, yeah, okay. Let's put a little bit better ROE. Okay. All right. So you don't have to see that. So here's what we do. Let's start with our assumptions. Let's go down. As usual, there's a debt to capital and a DSCR. But this time I said, oh, no. This time we put it right in the sizing assumptions. How much of our debt is balloon? 15%. That's our input from our spinner box. The remainder is I'm going to press the F2 key so you can see it. And then we do this formula, to balloon factor. This is percent of sculpted NPV. So we get the sculpted NPV. The problem is the sculpted NPV depends on the balloon interest. And if the balloon interest then helps drive the sculpting, then you get a circular reference. I should have been able to explain that a little better, but I didn't. At the end of the day, here's how much debt we have. It's 15% balloon, total debt, and we can do this, okay? And we'll have a circular reference that I'll try to go through quickly, or maybe I'll even have a separate video. And then we put a different debt repayment tenor here, and I made the balloon payment occur in the same year as the debt tenor. And then we have this thing that I just talked about in an earlier video about if we do have a debt to capital constraint, how are we going to limit this? And since it's true, we're going to just adjust the DSCR down. And then we have the uh, different, which I think is another fascinating issue. I really do. You have increasing credit spreads, which imply refinancing, and then you don't make a refinancing assumption in your model. Your model's rubbish then. It really is. And that was a more important assumption than I thought at first. And then we have our little interest rate as well. Okay, and then we can put in a different cash sweep. And I can put in a sweep of 0% or 100%. It's going to look a little bit like a normal old cash flow sweep, but this time we're going to put it in a reserve account. And there are a couple of issues to deal with. And here's that project IRR that I showed you. So I put a little sources and uses statement in. Now, of course, the sculpted debt and the balloon debt that I have backwards, good. Those two numbers come, we don't have them yet. See, they come from, I think we're in line 67. They come from downstairs. The first thing we need to do is just put a balloon switch. And then we also define, I didn't tell you this enough, when you have a transaction like this, you define when the cash flow sweep starts, so you can see how many years before the inputs, how many years before the balloon payment, and that you take the total F33 must have been the balloon payment year, and you subtract that from 5. So we get a little switch. That's the first thing. And please, 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 please don't put these switches in a different stupid page of your model. It defeats the purpose. Put the switches where you need them, where you see them. Make it transparent. F-A-S-T. My competitors, all those say F-A-S-T. I try to make my courses like that. I try to make my life, but I'm too old. Flexible. Make your life flexible. Be flexible with your relationships. Be accurate. Don't lie too much. A little bit is okay. Be structured with your life. I'm never structured enough, I know. And be transparent. Let people make it simple. That's what being transparent really is. Don't make it all complicated. So over here we have a true when we're going to start our sweep, and then we have a true just when our balloon occurs, and then we just make our balloon tranche this, and I go up to F27, and F27 it was the amount of the balloon payment, and the amount of the balloon payment came from a circular reference. If we could have tried to make this 17% of the sculpted payment, that's what I tried at first, but it causes a circular reference. So I'm going to show you that technique a little bit now, but let's just get the basics kind of right. And then you put I use the same interest rate, and you have your interest on your balloon payment. Okay, opening balance equals closing balance, and the balloon payment function is just, let's take the opening balance and multiply it by the true and false switch. Now, you can say, oh, you should have put the sweep right in here. That's what I did at first, but that's wrong. I'll show you why in the cash flow waterfall. If we put it as a reserve account here, which I don't have it switched on, what I didn't show you in that previous introduction enough is right now our balloon payment helps, but then if we put a cash sweep of 100% in, it hurts the IRR a little bit. So let's do 3 scenarios. We have 9.17 IRR, 9.47 if we had no balloon at all. Whoops, the wrong way. If we had no balloon at all, we'd have come on. We'd have 8.10. All right, so that's the sweep hurts it a little bit, but the balloon is still better than no balloon without a sweep payment. Now, I did not do something. I did not put in I'm going to put 100% sweep. I did not put in we could have made it different. Let's make it 50%. Let's make it a little more interesting. I did not put an interest income on that balloon payment. And that's another circular reference. And by the time you have all those horrible circular references, I believe, I don't know, part of that's biased, but I think a function might help. Because functions, once you have so many circular reference, functions start to actually not be quite as bad and quite as complicated. My goal is to make those functions easier to understand. So now we put in our cash flow sweep, and what we have to do is put a little test in the cash flow statement. I don't want to sweep more than the amount of the balloon payment. So we got to put a little test on there. And then you notice I didn't put an interest income rate in. So the idea of this sweep is my standard kind of lecture that sweep comes from downstairs. That comes from downstairs in the cash flow waterfall. We have a cash sweep, and our cash sweep is with a minimum and a maximum, and you put the percentage inside, not outside of the min-max rule. That's the rule. That's the rule. That's the rule. And eventually we're going to release cash from the sweep. And when we release it we're going to release it in AD 91. So I put the release. I suppose I probably should have even put that cash flow released downstairs. But that cash flow released is simply the amount of cash flow we have multiplied by the little switch. So this could have been either upstairs or downstairs. And that could be too little or too much. We don't know. Okay? And then we do our standard debt sizing. Now the standard debt sizing I did with a regular old debt repayment switch. And the only real difference is we make a debt service without the, if we can say without the balloon payment, but this is the one with the balloon payment. So you take the cash flow, divided by DSCR, minus the interest on the balloon payment. Not the final maturity, because that's covered kind of differently. And then we do our standard kind of taking an interest rate index and the sum product of the interest rate index. I don't know how you do this without a sum product. Maybe you're so good you do it fancier. Sum product where you divide it, okay? And then this is the one we want. Okay, so I'm going to show this one. I hope I'm making it clear without going through all of the wasting of the time. Then we have the sculpted debt, which is just starting with this one. Now this, by the way, this DSCR, this DSCR comes from this analysis with LLCR. It's the same kind of thing. If you hit a debt to capital constraint, you got to increase that. Okay? And I think the formula is exactly the same. And then we can now finally, I used to call this a defaulted debt. But you go down to the end, and what might happen is, I used to call this default. You go down to the cash flow statement, and if you don't have enough to pay off the balloon, you got to issue some new debt. And then I made it a cash sweep. So you try to repay this kind of defaulted debt, or I called it refinance debt, as soon as you possibly can. Standard kind of thing, min-max inside, but go down to the cash flow waterfall. So in our cash flow waterfall, we start with CFADS, then we take away the interest on the sculpted debt and the interest on the balloon payment. And this should say less repayment of the sculpted debt. Now, as usual, you have to make a cash flow sweep, you need a subtotal. And that was our min-max. Maybe I should go a little bit slower on this min-max. This says, take this one if it's above 0. That's the maximum here. Take that. Multiply that by the 50%. And then also multiply it by this switch for when the repayment occurs. That's what I just showed you. And then make sure you haven't swept too much, because if you swept more than the total balance of the debt, you can stop. And then this cash released, that actually comes from above. We could have done the calculation below. It would have been better. And you have another subtotal. And finally, after you've done the sweep, you see, okay, I've taken this amount. I started with 25 cash flow. I swept 13. And then I'm releasing all the rest of that cash. And that gives me 85 that I've got left. I've got to pay off a balloon payment of 170, so I've defaulted. I should have put a larger sweep in. If I would have put a larger sweep in, we would have had this. And then we have another cash flow sweep with, again, a min-max. We make sure that that's bigger than 0. If it's bigger than 0, take the minimum of that, or how much you've built up in this refinance debt, which is just, again, we put the opening balance, add the refinancing, go to the closing balance. And then you've got the whole thing. And then you can put the equity cash flow in and see just how much you've increased the equity IRR by. Okay, now I'm going to just show you the circular reference. You could have done a copy-paste in our class. We did a copy-paste at first. But then you would have had a pain with doing all the goal seeks, finding the carrying charge rate, and everything else. So, how are we doing on time? Only 20 minutes. How about this? I'm going to stop and make a second video on balloon payments. I just changed my mind right in the middle. Okay, so that's our kind of balloon payment number 1 that goes through the structure. If you didn't have a circular reference, it wouldn't be that bad. And you could show, here's what I really like to do, is I would take this whole thing, now we've done a data table, and this is what I did over here. We copy this, we do the whole kind of data table without a balloon payment, then change the balloon payment, redo the data table, either forcing it to a goal seek or not, and then you compare it, you put the balloon payment here over here, and then you just copy and paste it, and you do a comparison, and then you're a very fancy financial advisor. I think it's reasonably sophisticated, maybe not terrifically, but okay. And that's it. Oh, wow.